Hello and welcome back to Tidbit of Torah. There's a rabbinic joke that goes as follows, that when Moses was up on the mountain receiving the Torah on behalf of the Israelite people, he arranged for a photographer to be down below snapping photos of the Israelites at the base of the mountain. And what did the photographer say to get the Israelites to smile? She said, "Cheese." This joke gets to an essential question that many of us have about the upcoming holiday of Shavuot, which is why all the dairy? For there is a tradition of eating sweet dairy foods like cheesecake and blintzes and other things. But why? I'd like to take a moment to explore just a few of the multiple explanations for why we have this tradition. Well, first of all, the Mishnah Berurah puts forward a sort of practical rabbinic explanation for eating dairy. It says that while the Israelites were walking down from the mountain, they simply did not have time after receiving the Torah to do kosher slaughter and prepare a full meat meal, and therefore they gave themselves a break and they ate dairy. I think this is a great example of something we can do in our own lives, which is to say, you know what, Dayenu, this simple dinner is enough that I'm putting forward for my family tonight. It also speaks to the symbol that dairy has, as the prophet Isaiah puts forward, which is that dairy represents a time which all the animals will live in harmony, a time when there will be no need for violence between humans and animals or animals and animals. This messianic idea of a time in which we will only need to eat dairy because we will live in a world without violence. And Shavuot gives us a taste of that non-violent world. Other explanations of why dairy on Shavuot revolve around the idea of chalav udvash, which means milk and honey, which is how the Torah describes the promised land, the place where the Israelites are journeying to after all that time and the trials and tribulations in the wilderness. What a fascinating way to describe the promised land. It could have been described any way, through any nature imagery or any food. But the promised land is described as a life-giving, liquid, lactating, sweet place. And I find that to be such a beautiful image for us of this life-giving, sweet, nourishing kind of environment that we're striving for, whether that's in the land of Israel or in our own idea of a better world that we're also going towards. And chalav udvash is not only how the promised land is described, but it's also how Torah learning is described. Rashi, the 11th century French commentator, says that when the book of Shir HaShirim, the Song of Psalms, says, Devash v'chalav tachat leshonech, honey and milk under the tongue, Rashi says that that means Torah, that the sweetness that comes out of milk and honey under the tongue refers to the role that learning can play in our lives. And in a sense, this is precisely what the holiday of Shavuot is all about. It's about recommitting ourselves to the sweetness of learning, whether that's getting down on the floor and reading a book with our children or grandchildren, or committing to learning through new experiences, new reading, or new relationships. I wonder what new learning might look like for you and how that might be nourishing. Interestingly, the gematria, or the numerical equivalent of the word chalav, chet lamed bet, in Hebrew is 40, which is also the number of days that Moses spent up on the mountain in order to receive the Torah, and the number of years that the Israelites spent wandering in the desert on their journey. And so, is this a coincidence, or is this further evidence that there's something that connects dairy to Shavuot? That's a question that you'll have to answer for yourself. But what I love about all these connections is that it helps us recommit ourselves to a kind of learning that is nourishing and sweet and aspirational, that can ground us in the process of ongoing revelation and help us find a sense of renewal through learning in the days and months ahead. I want to wish you a Chag Shavuot Sameach, a happy Shavuot, happy learning, and Shabbat Shalom.